untouchable. You put me in a box. You want me to be your designable, but there's luminescence to me.
Hello everyone, coming to you today with another story time today. I'm probably going to do a makeup tutorial on my next video, but today is a story time. My last two story times have been set not too long ago. The last one was set about 5 years ago, and the one before was with the fuckboy I fell in love with was from when I was a teenager. But this one we're going to go back quite far. This is from when I was 6 to 7, and it is the story of when my best friend became my bully. It was very sad and very upsetting, but it sort of marked quite a big change in my life. Okay, so when I was 6, I was at a school. I was at primary school, and I didn't really fit in with anyone. But then I started talking to this girl. I sort of had friends, but so like not just one friend. But this girl, what should we call her? We're going to call her Emily. And so I suddenly became really good friends with Emily, and we would hang around all the time. We didn't really used to hang out with other people. We sort of like used to just go around together, just the two of us, and we would mess around quite a bit. We made up all these funny creatures, and we made up all these stories, and we would just play together and just do things together. She used to come around to my house quite a lot. I sort of saw myself as having other friends, but Emily was my main sort of best friend, and so yeah, we were best friends. And to start, it was really good, and we were just really good friends. But soon, like, I always felt like her mum didn't really approve of me as a friend, just because at the time I lived in a really kind of like small, narrow-minded village where sort of like everybody was white and straight, basically, all very conservative and stuff, and sort of like I was a bit different to the rest of everyone else, and I would always hang out with Emily all the time. So just had to edit it out a bit where I accidentally said her real name then. Oh, that was terrible. So Emily's mum didn't really approve of me as a friend to Emily, and I started getting a lot of sort of like stuff of you need to start hanging around with other people more, because then if you fall out with your best friend, then you won't have any other friends and stuff like that. And then Emily actually started repeating that to me, because she wanted to go off and play with other people. Like, she just suddenly started to grow away from me, and now I know it's because her mum had probably been telling her that she needed to go and get other friends because she didn't really approve of me, but she was disguising it as, oh, well, if you fall out with your best friend, you won't have any other friends to play with if you don't make friends with others. And so sort of like, yeah, I would always be really upset when I couldn't be around Emily, because I've always been a very sort of like one-to-one person. I'm not a big fan of big groups. I'm not a big fan of having like obviously today I have more than one friend. Today, so like it's not quite so intense, but I was 6, 7 at the time. And so anyway, we would always say that we were best friends and stuff, and we would sort of like muck around quite a bit. But then sort of like Emily wanted to go off and start making new friends, and one day I found out there was this girl called, what should we call her? We'll call her Sophie, who was not always that nice to us. Like, she could be quite mean to me sometimes, but she was, I was sometimes friends with her. I went round to her house once. She could be nice sometimes, and she could be fun sometimes, but she could also not be very nice. And Emily started hanging around more with Sophie, and I just sort of like started noticing one day Sophie was like, me and Emily are best friends, and I was like, but Emily's my best friend and stuff. And later she sort of later Sophie started telling me, no, you're her second best friend, I'm her best friend. And one day Emily confirmed that and decided that I was no longer her best friend, and that was quite upsetting to me, because like the sort of person that I am. And so yeah, Emily was no longer my best friend. And also sort of like something that happened that I felt like my mum took a bit too seriously. I don't like what I look like without a fringe, mainly for a lot of personal reasons, but as a kid I didn't really like what I looked like without a fringe, and one time, and like at the time Emily was growing her fringe out because she believed she looked stupid with a fringe, and I was like, oh, I look stupid without a fringe, and like showed it to her, lifted up my fringe, and she agreed, and later I told my mum that Emily agreed with me, and my mum just assumed Emily had come up to me and said that, and like stuff, and was like, oh, that's really mean, oh, you look cute without a fringe, and I was like, no, I don't like not having a fringe, and I was like, because like in truth I'd said it, and then she agreed with me and stuff, which was maybe a bit rude, but we were kids. And then there were just other things, like she'd make a big thing about the fact, because we went to this drama group, and we had to stand in height order, and she made a bit of a thing about the fact that she was a little bit taller than me, and like there was a really kind of like height sort of hierarchy at school, because if you were shorter you were seen as a little baby, like it's not good to be seen as a little baby. And also just sort of like she just started to become meaner and started like saying things that were a bit meaner, and my mum noticed she'd sometimes seem a bit intolerant with me, and she just slowly started like going off me and stuff, and it was really hurting and really upsetting because of the sort of person I was. And trying to remember what came next, just because, like I said, this was almost 20 years ago. And so the next thing was just sort of like, she just even sort of like, I suddenly sort of like decided I didn't like her anymore after one bit, when like she just started being mean to me more, and I sort of like backed off from her, and she was hanging around with Sophie all the time, and they started doing everything together like me and her had once done, but she was suddenly acting a lot more kind of cool, and not like, because when me and Emily were friends we would mess around all the time, we didn't really care about being cool, and we would just muck about and be silly, but she started being more sort of like cool and more kind of in and stuff, because we were kind of getting to the age where sort of being cool started to matter. I was never into it at that age. I always saw it as kind of silly. But anyway, yeah. I sort of got closer to this other girl. We're going to call her Maggie. So I started getting too close to this really nice girl called Maggie, and we would hang out together sometimes. And just sort of like both Emily and Sophie would sort of come up to me, and they would very deliberately poke me or something, and they'd be like, oh, sorry, I really didn't mean to do that, and sometimes they'd say, oh, you need to be more careful, and one time I was sort of on the climbing frame, and then I just felt like one of them just came by and poked me, and they were just slowly starting to become meaner to me. It was really obviously because, like, Emily's mum was quite snobbish, and she sort of just, like, looked down on me and my family, because I'm pretty sure it's because, like, we didn't own our own house, and we weren't too well off and stuff, and I was a little bit weird. Yeah, I've always been the weird kid. Anyway, and so it all came to a head when one day, Emily, almost said her real name again then, Emily brought forward this letter and showed it to the teacher, and apparently it was addressed to Maggie, and it was saying something mean, like the teacher was saying, oh, this is a really horrible letter, and the teacher asked Emily, almost said her real name again. The teacher addressed Emily and said like, oh, where did you find this? And Emily was like, oh, under Alexis's bag. And I was like, oh, don't bring me into this. Even at 7 years old, I was kind of like that. And then I was also in year 3, I'd become friends with this other girl who we're going to call Tara. And sort of like, Tara could be really nice, but later there was a kind of an incident where she invited all the girls in our class to her party except for me, and my mum was really upset about that. Like, I felt like mum made a bigger deal of it than anyone else did, than I did. Like, she had a tendency which really messed with me to really kind of like centre my issues around herself. Like, she was so over emotional, and she just used to she used to get as upset as me about things and like make it about her own feelings, and that really bothered me. Anyway, we'll talk about my mum in another video. And anyway, with Tara believed that I'd written the letter to Maggie and I was like, oh, that's really horrible. And Tara was like, oh, why did you write it then? I said I didn't. And then she said, oh, why does it say love from Alexis then? And I had no idea. And so I found out, oh, I'd been framed. And later I found out from the teachers that they had worked out who'd written it, because obviously they'd gone through everyone's books and looked at handwriting. And later, me, Maggie, and what did I call her again? Emily, were kept back at lunchtime, like not being told off, just to explain stuff, and apparently Emily had confessed that she'd written the letter and tried to frame me, and like they tried to do this whole "oh sorry" thing, and I still wasn't really buying it. And later things just kept getting worse and worse. Like, I can't really remember everything that led up to it. Obviously it was 20 years ago, but apparently Emily was trying to turn everybody against me, and obviously she was still friends with Sophie, and a lot of us, including me and my mum and my dad, reckon that Emily and possibly Sophie were saying to Tara, if you invite Alexis, then we won't be your friend anymore, we won't come, and things like that, and stuff like that. And because like Emily had a bit of a habit of sort of blackmailing people. She'd done it to me before and stuff, and there started to be this sort of like whole negotiation about me not wanting to go to that school anymore. Like I would have days off and stuff, sort of sick days off and stuff like that, and yeah, like I was being bullied quite a bit, and I was really unhappy and stuff. And there was even talk of my mum possibly homeschooling me, and that happened in the end. But apparently, like, my one time that's like really set things off was apparently my mum went into school to talk to one of my teachers about something, and she saw Emily smiling at her, and my mum admitted that what she did here was kind of stupid, and she regretted it a bit because she kind of escalated matters, but she said, "Don't smile at me, Emily," and apparently Emily like burst into tears and ran off. And then my mum was talking to the teacher, like all was well, but then Emily's mum apparently burst in and was like, "What did you say to my daughter? You swore at her." And I didn't find out about this until later, because okay, so I went to this drama group that Emily went to at the same time, and this girl came up to me and started asking me, "Alexis, why did you write that note in class?" Like, referring to the letter to Maggie. And I was saying, What did I do? And this girl, I never found out her name, said, "You wrote a note in class talking about it." And I was like to Emily, "I didn't write it." And then Emily was like, "Yes, you did, you liar." And then later she said, "Do you know what your mum did? She swore at me." And then I asked my mum about it, and she told me that story about her saying, "Don't smile at me, Emily," and things like that. And yeah, we definitely weren't friends by then, and she had pretty much just become bullying me. And I stopped going to that drama group, and I stopped going to the school in the end because it all just got too much. And I did sort of stay friends with Maggie for a little while afterwards. I went round to her house once and she was really nice. Like, she actually had confided in me before that she didn't really like Emily, and she found her kind of bossy and stuff, and apparently she was pretending to be friends with Emily, but sort of like didn't really like her really, and was saying like, oh, she threatened to tell on me for some reason if I didn't be her friend, and so like she's faking it, and she was really kind of like on my side. Like, Maggie knew I didn't write the letter, like she knew that I wouldn't say anything like that, because apparently it said, "Dear Maggie, I hate you," from Alexis. Yeah, Maggie knew that I wouldn't say that, and she knew that like it wasn't in my handwriting, and it wasn't stuff written as me, and I didn't have that paper that it was written on and stuff. So yeah, this is just a bit of like kid drama from when I was younger. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll be coming at you with a makeup video on Wednesday, and see you then. Bye! Oh, and sorry, I always forget to say this, but if this is your first video here, hi, please subscribe to my channel, please like this video, please leave a comment of your thoughts and stuff, and the intro song is mine. It's called Iridescent, and it's available on iTunes and Google Play and Bandcamp and places like that. Please buy it, stream it, listen to it. Okay, so, and also follow me on Instagram at Alexis Gray Music, and yeah, and check out my other videos. I've done some other commentary and storytime videos. Okay, so I hope to see you next time. Bye!